Square Enix has been a hot topic of conversation for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, given all the rumors and rumblings that have been going around. The two characters at the forefront for most of the speculation are fan favorite star boy Geno and the vibrant Keyblade master Sora. Geno has been a fan favorite for years, and there has been an outcry for his inclusion since before Brawl. Despite his limited video game appearances, Geno was able to make the most of his small opportunity and captivated fans through his design and in-game dialogue / moveset. Geno resonated with the fans deeply. That's why his fan base has remained the course for so long now when it comes to getting him into Smash Bros. And one of those fans is Sakurai himself. The famous interview excerpt with Nintendo Dream is a prime example of this, where Sakurai states, "To tell the truth, it's because I wanted Geno to be a playable character. He has a gun for a hand, and I think he fits in really well with Smash. During Brawl, I thought it would be great if I could add him, but in the end, it did not become a reality. Because of that, you added him as a Mii costume this time." That's right, he's very popular. When talking about older characters, Geno always gets a lot of requests. He didn't appear as a fighter, but I was able to achieve something kind of close to that as a Mii costume. So we know that Sakurai himself has expressed interest to work Geno into Smash. So why have we not gotten Geno as of yet, with Sakurai clearly wanting him for over 10 years now? Well, the blame probably falls on Square. I see no real other reason for his exclusion since Sakurai in fact wants him. I know that many people saw Cloud's inclusion as a good point for Geno, but was it actually very beneficial? It established that Square was willing to work with Nintendo and include a playable character into the roster, so in that aspect, it does show the connection is there. But then you get to thinking, if Sakurai wanted Geno since before Brawl, would that not have been his first choice of a Square character? So in this case, doesn't it seem like Geno was blown off by Square? And it would make sense that he would. Square at the end of the day wants to make a good business decision. While they would make some money on the initial investment from Nintendo to get Geno into Smash, that's about where the benefits would stop. Geno is a dead character. There are no new Geno games coming. There is no Geno merchandise on the way. Square doesn't stand much to gain at all from his inclusion outside of accolades from a few fans who may choose to write in and thank them. When you compare Geno to the other third-party characters in the Smash universe, you begin to see the disparity. Those characters will make their respective companies money outside of just the initial Nintendo investment. People who hadn't played Metal Gear Solid before they saw Snake in Brawl, well, guess what? There's a ton of Snake games out there for you to play, and ones that have come out after Brawl has debuted. Sonic the Hedgehog, well, you know how big he is. Cloud Strife, he's been in over 30 games across multiple consoles dating back to the 90s and as recent as the past 2 years. Even the characters on the lower number of titles, like Richter and Simon, still have games that came out within the decade in order to reroute sales to. Heck, even freaking Pac-Man is still getting games developed that he's a part of. Geno just doesn't stack up. While the Super Mario RPGs have continued, Geno has not. And more often than not, he's been excluded. As many Geno fans would know, Geno actually made a cameo in Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga for GBA. However, when this game was remastered for 3DS, fans were quick to notice that Geno was completely removed. His role was very small in that game, just a cameo, but it was still a cool nod to the fans. So for him to be completely removed would show the dire situations that he may be in. Geno doesn't have a place to reroute sales after Smash. Every single other third-party character in the game does. Again, Square just doesn't have much to gain from this. So they simply may not want to have Geno representing their franchise as a breadwinner for a playable character spot. So I actually think Cloud's inclusion in Smash may have been a detriment to Geno, as it shows Square was willing to pass over him. Sakurai was actually the one to approach Square about Cloud, noted back in an interview he did alongside Tetsuya Nomura. Nomura being famous for his creative works in the Final Fantasy series, as well as the director of Kingdom Hearts series. In this interview, Sakurai said, "This isn't an exact number, but among the requests for a Final Fantasy character to appear in Smash, around 1/4 or 1/3 of the requests we got from fans were for Cloud. I really wanted to answer their desires of the fans, and even though I thought it would be impossible, I reached out anyway, just to try. Now keep in mind, Sakurai was not referencing the Smash ballot when he said this, but just requests in general, and it shows that Sakurai approached Square on behalf of many fans who wanted Cloud to be in. This probably mimics the scenario in which he asked for Geno, as Sakurai noted that Geno was very popular among fan requests as well. But Cloud was accepted, and we still have no Geno, even though they were approached in the same way, with Sakurai making the initial move. And in a way, I feel like Geno's Mii costume inclusion was sort of a bone that Square threw to Sakurai for being patient and still desiring to work with them even after their initial rejections of Geno. And it brings me back to a quote from Sakurai on the Japanese Brawl website where he said, "Smash is a game that's made from everyone's efforts. Both companies have to want the character to join the battle." And at the end of the day, I feel like that's Geno's biggest problem. It feels Square doesn't want him to join the battle. With his exclusion from the remastered Mario & Luigi, to his lack of appearances over the past decades, to his no-show in the Super Smash Bros. Series, it has to be Square, or it just doesn't add up. For a character as popular as he is, it just doesn't add up. Now Sora is in a peculiar spot, and I already know someone has probably typed "Sora is a Disney character" in the comments before they have even reached this point of the video, and I will waste no time even responding to their replies in the comments. But I want to preface this part by saying this: Disney is a company fueled by one thing: greed. The only things Disney cares about are making money and keeping the company and their character images intact. If Sora in Smash would provide both of those things, then Disney would have no qualms with his inclusion, and you're kidding yourself if you think otherwise. Let's examine the relationship between the two main players here in Nintendo and Disney. Their relationship is actually pretty strong, which is something a lot of people don't seem to know. Just in the past couple years, Disney and Nintendo have collaborated on a few games: Disney Art Academy and Disney Magical World 1 and 2. There's of course the Bowser appearance in Wreck-It Ralph, showing Nintendo is willing to extend that olive branch, and Disney extending it back by having Wreck-It Ralph games exclusive to Nintendo consoles. As recent as this summer, Nintendo and Disney collaborated on a televised program called Nintendo Switch Family Showdown, pitting families against each other in competition using Nintendo Switch games. And if you go back to last year's EVO tournament, EVO being the world's largest and most notable fighting game tournament, the Super Smash Bros. 4 tournament in particular was broadcast on Disney XD, bringing in over 184,000 viewers. And on a repeat broadcast of the tournament 2 weeks later, it brought in another 150,000 viewers. Disney and Nintendo have had a relationship since the 1950s, and it's still going strong today. In fact, Disney and Nintendo's relationship is so good that it has been rumored for years now that at the slightest hitch, Disney would be willing to buy Nintendo outright. And that shouldn't surprise anyone, as Disney and Nintendo's ideals with their generally family-friendly content align with each other. It's a match made in heaven on paper. Okay, but what about the relationship between Sakurai and Nomura, the two main players within those companies for this case? Sakurai is on record saying that they hadn't actually ever met until it was time to talk about Cloud's appearance in Smash 4. Now, just because their relationship is rather new doesn't mean it hasn't become strong. In various interviews, they have both expressed high regard for one another with lots of praise. And Sakurai is a known fan of the Kingdom Hearts series as well, sharing his thoughts ahead of the 15th anniversary of Kingdom Hearts in a special column he participated in on Famitsu. Oh, and they're both cat owners, so they have that special cat bond. But on a more serious note, Sakurai has some key quotes from his interviews that are interesting to think about in regards to Sora. Honestly, when we revealed Solid Snake for Brawl, I thought, there's no way we'll be able to stage a bigger surprise than this. But as a creator, you just keep making more while trying to surprise and delight your audience as much as possible. This is from the interview alongside Nomura, and it's intriguing how he notes that no matter what he creates, the goal is again to keep striving even harder and create more surprises for the Smash audience. And this is after he's already gotten Cloud Strife into the game. I don't think there's much of a step up from that in terms of greatness or surprise, but it's definitely easy to agree that Sora would much fit this description more than Geno. Sora would be a shock to most people, as the general consensus is he's still locked in Disney purgatory. So if Sakurai were able to pull it off, it would definitely fit his description of trying to surprise. And then this quote that is taken from an interview with Nintendo Dream speaking about third-party characters in Smash. Those third-party characters are huge icons of their respective companies, so such an opportunity is hard to come by. That being said, now that Smash has grown into a well-known franchise, the creators recognize the merits of allowing us to use their characters, so negotiations have tended to go rather smoothly. It's an interesting take where he notes that even more companies are warming up to the idea after they've shown how successful it can be, because that seemingly hasn't been the case with Geno, at least from an outsider's perspective. His negotiation appears to have only led him to a Mii costume rather than a full-fledged appearance, after Sakurai is on record saying he wanted the character. So even though Sakurai noted here that negotiations go smoothly now, it doesn't seem to be the case for Geno, and I don't think that's a good sign for him in particular. And then there's the Smash ballot. People often bring this up as a boost for Geno, but personally I wouldn't be surprised if Sora was a candidate that finished top 5 in North America. Now that's pure speculation on my part, but when you take into consideration that the Kingdom Hearts series has over 14 million sales in just North America alone, I think that speaks volumes. And I know I can already hear the people in the back talking about the poll data from the SSB Dojo that is literally in every Smash video ever. Yes, Sora is at the bottom of that data poll in 31st place. But I've said this so many times that this data has to be taken with extreme grains of salt, as results can vary heavily with the actual Smash ballot due to tons of factors, from where the polls were taken to the gender ratio and all kinds of little intricacies. And to show what I mean, here's a poll that was done from Etika's community back then. He had his own Smash ballot voting, and this is how the top 10 stacked up. As you can see, it's nowhere near the same as what the other poll shows. Sora finished top 3 with over 5,000 votes, and the top 2 finishers are indie characters. And Etika's poll was roughly around the same size as Dojo's poll with just 5,000 less votes. So the data is comparable and shows how these polls have to be taken with caution.
Take that for data.
And it's worth noting that Sora actually had some relatively big YouTubers behind him at the time of the Smash ballot. People like HMK and the Gamers Joint throwing their full support behind him and urging their communities to do the same and vote for him. So though it's all speculation from me, I think Sora did relatively well in the ballot as far as NA goes, and I wouldn't be surprised if Sakurai noticed that. Square and Disney have both also noticeably loosened up on Kingdom Hearts appearances outside of its own universe, with Sora being granted permission to appear in World of Final Fantasy and Mickey having his Kingdom Hearts costume in Disney Infinity. It shows that things are improving, and Disney is definitely open to the idea of Kingdom Hearts appearing in other places if they feel it's right. And it's important to note that Nomura and Disney have had a relationship now for over 16 years. It's known that whenever Sora in particular comes up, Disney has the courtesy and respect to ask Nomura's opinion first before doing anything. I think if Sakurai wanted Sora, Nomura alone would be able to get Disney on board, just because of the tenured relationship they have together at this point. And Sora himself has enough of an identity to separate himself from all the big Disney elements that reside in Kingdom Hearts. He doesn't need Donald, he doesn't need Goofy, he doesn't need Mickey. Kingdom Hearts has tons of original material that can be used to work in if Disney doesn't want those characters near the screen. They can even remove the Mickey ears pendant from Sora's Keyblade if they need to and replace it with something like Kairi's pendant. So Disney should be able to have things their way while still being able to incorporate Sora into Smash. And then we have Shinji Hashimoto. Now this guy has been in the news pretty recently in some Sora drama that you might have seen. On September 20th, Hashimoto replied to a tweet basically asking if Sora would be in Smash Bros. With this image and the hashtag Sora for Smash. Hashimoto replied to the tweet simply saying, yes. Now, who is Hashimoto? Well, he's actually the co-creator of the game itself. The story famously goes that back in the late 90s, Hashimoto was in discussion with Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy, about making a new open world game similar to Mario 64, but they needed some already established characters to help catapult the series. As fate would have it, Hashimoto found himself in an elevator with a top executive of Disney, as at the time, the two companies were sharing the same office building in Japan. Hashimoto made the pitch, and the rest is history. So this guy is obviously really important. He still works on the Kingdom Hearts series even to this day. Now initially many people thought, oh, Hashimoto is just new to Twitter, he had no idea what he was doing, as the account Hashimoto tweeted from was a relatively new account. New, but still legit, as the official Square Enix account actually follows him back. But what a lot of people don't know is that Hashimoto is no stranger to Twitter. In fact, he was known as a Twitter guru all the way back in 2012. Back then, Hashimoto was in charge of the Square Enix members' Twitter account, where he would post constant updates every single day, from talking about the games and aspects of them to even discussing things as simple as the weather. Hashimoto is no stranger to Twitter, and he's a savvy guy as well. So why would he tweet this out knowing what would happen? That I'm not sure, but let's set the stage for some of Hashimoto's previous antics. It was 2014 at the PlayStation Experience keynote, and fans had heard the slight rumblings of a Final Fantasy VII remake. Hashimoto was the man in charge of this segment, and he walks onto the stage to reveal the logo of Final Fantasy VII, much to the crowd's uproar, only to reveal minutes afterward that it was not actually a remake, but instead just a port of the PC version of Final Fantasy VII. Needless to say, the crowd was pissed and at a loss for words almost. It was one of the biggest trolls in video game history, spawning the popular Hashimoto gif of him laughing. However, what fans didn't know at the time was this was all part of a greater plan. In fact, behind the scenes, the Final Fantasy VII remake was already indeed happening and going ahead according to plan, but no one knew this except for Square themselves. And Hashimoto was on that stage presenting a port, while in his mind, he knew what was coming later. He was the ultimate troll, and just 6 months later at E3, the real Final Fantasy VII remake was shown off and everyone erupted. Square trolled, and they trolled hard. In fact, have a look at this clip from an interview back in 2014. One loyal fan asked about the possibility of a Final Fantasy VII remake, and check out the reaction from Hashimoto.
Do you ever think that you'll do a FF7?
He can barely contain the laughter, knowing that in his mind, a real Final Fantasy VII remake is already in the works. But of course, he had to lie and say it's not happening. So Hashimoto is a very savvy guy. He's the co-creator of Kingdom Hearts. He's a former Twitter guru and loves to troll. So with all of this in context, I have no idea what to make of this "yes for Sora" tweet. But one thing to consider is that he did delete the tweet the same night after it started to gain traction. But with all of this being said, Sora has his own dilemmas as well. It does at the end of the day all come down to Disney. They can simply veto the process if they want. There's no guarantee that any of this info says Sora gets in, or Geno gets in, or neither of them get in. But if Disney, Nintendo, and Square can't work out a way to get both of these characters in, then it's their own fault, and I think they would miss out on a great opportunity to make a profit. But that brings us to the end of this video, guys. Congrats if you managed to stick around to the end. It's a lot longer than my usual stuff, but don't forget to check out some of my previous videos if you have time, and subscribe with notifications on for more future content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.